Real stories of werewolves of DOGMAN history from your emails, illustrated and animated with the democratizing magic of machine learning AI. Welcome to Scary Stories.
Werewolf versus illegal immigrants. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I think the DOGMAN may have saved my life, but I'm not 100% sure. Let me explain, and then you can tell me if you think I'm right or wrong about this. It was a winter night, cold and clear, when they came for my home. I had been expecting them, in a way, after weeks of threats and intimidation. I was at my kitchen window clutching my old flannel robe around me, when their headlights cut through the darkness of my driveway. 3 vehicles, 2 pickup trucks and some kind of SUV, their engines quieting as they parked in a half circle facing my porch. I counted 8 men emerging from the vehicles. Even in the dim light, I could see the tattoos covering their arms, their necks, their faces. They spoke rapidly to each other in what sounded like either Spanish or maybe Portuguese, their voices carrying through the still night air. The one who spoke English was directing the others, pointing toward different entrances to my home. That's when I saw it, a massive shadow detaching itself from the tree line behind them. At first I thought my old eyes were playing tricks, but no, it moved with purpose, hunched and powerful. The DOGMAN stood nearly 8 feet tall as it emerged into the yard, walking upright like a man, but with the unmistakable head of a wolf or a large canine. Its eyes caught the moonlight, glinting like polished amber. One of the men turned, sensing something behind him. His shout alerted the others. They spun around, reaching inside their jackets and into the truck beds for what I assumed were weapons. But this was not my first experience with those men, or with the DOGMAN. I first saw the creature about 3 years ago, not long after I moved into this cabin, following my husband's passing. The insurance money wasn't much, but it was just enough to buy this little place tucked away in the Tennessee woods, where property values hadn't gone crazy yet. I enjoyed the solitude, and I used it to heal. It was autumn. The leaves were just beginning to turn. I was sitting on my back porch with a cup of tea, watching the sunset paint the treetops gold, when I noticed something moving between the trees, about 50 yards out. At first I thought it was a deer. We get plenty of those around here. But this was different. It was taller. It moved cautiously, deliberately, and it seemed to be moving on 2 legs. When it turned its head in my direction, I caught my breath. Even at that distance, I could see it wasn't any normal animal. Its head was distinctly canine, like a German shepherd or a wolf, but much larger. Yet it stood on 2 legs, its posture almost human-like. It was covered in dark fur, gray, or perhaps a deep brown in the fading light. For a moment we just stared at each other. I was frozen, teacup halfway to my lips. It made no aggressive moves. It just watched me with what I could swear was intelligence in its eyes. Then it simply turned and melted back into the forest. That night I convinced myself I'd seen a bear standing oddly, or maybe just a very tall man in some kind of strange costume. But deep down, I knew better. A week later, I saw it again, closer this time. I'd been gathering kindling at the edge of my clearing when I felt eyes on me. There it was, watching from behind a massive oak tree. In the broad daylight, there was no mistaking what I was seeing. A creature that walked like a man, but had the head and features of a wolf or large dog. It stood easily 7 feet tall, with powerful shoulders and arms that hung longer than a human's should. I should have been terrified, but something in its demeanor was not threatening. After that second sighting, I actually began leaving food out. Leftover stew, ham scraps, sometimes just plain bread. Each morning the plates would be empty. Each morning I would hope I would see it again. We developed an understanding, that creature and I. I never tried to approach it, and it kept its distance from me. But somehow, its presence in the woods made me feel less alone out here. less vulnerable, like I had a guardian watching over me. After the pandemic, things began to change in my quiet corner of Tennessee. I started noticing unfamiliar vehicles in our rarely used road, and sometimes I heard voices deep in the woods where no hikers should be. The first time I encountered them was last summer. I was tending my small garden when a pickup truck slowed near my driveway. 4 young, dark-haired men were inside, all with elaborate tattoos covering their arms and creeping up their necks. Some even had markings on their faces. Not ordinary tattoos like my grandson has, but strange symbols and patterns that gave me an uneasy feeling. They stared at my property, pointing and talking rapidly in what sounded like Spanish. When they noticed me watching, the truck accelerated away. Over the next few months, I saw them with increasing frequency. Sometimes they'd park at the abandoned hunting cabin half a mile down the road. Other times they'd drive slowly past my house, music blaring. I began keeping my doors locked at all times, something I'd rarely bothered with before. It was in January when one of them finally approached me. I was bringing in firewood when a newer model SUV pulled into my driveway. A man in his mid-20s got out, his arms completely covered in blue and black ink that extended up his neck and onto his cheek in an intricate pattern. Unlike the others, he spoke English, though with a heavy accent. "This is a nice place you have here," he said, looking around appreciatively at my modest cabin and the clearing surrounding it. "Very private." I clutched my armload of logs tighter. "Can I help you with something?" His smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm just being neighborly," he said. "We're going to be around here more now. Business opportunities, you understand?" When I didn't respond, he continued. "This area is perfect for what we need. Good roads, but not much police. Nobody asking questions." "I keep to myself," I said, hoping that would satisfy him. He nodded. "That's good. But soon we might need more space for our operation. Your house. It has a basement, yes?" The casual way he was asking me about my own home sent chills through me. "I think you should get ready to move out," he said, still maintaining that unsettling smile. "Not right away, but, soon. We might have use for this place." "This is my home," I managed to say. "I'm not going anywhere." He shrugged as if my protests were inconsequential. "I'm trying to be friendly about it. The others, they are not so patient as me. But we will need this location." He gestured vaguely toward the forested hills beyond my property. "Things are changing. You'll see." After he left, I called the county sheriff's office. The deputy who finally called back 2 days later seemed uninterested. "It's probably just hunters or campers passing through, ma'am. Can't do much unless they trespass, or unless they threaten you directly." But they had threatened me, just not in a way that this guy would recognize. The visits increased after that. Sometimes they'd park at the end of my driveway at night, lights on, engines running. Other times I'd find evidence that they'd been on my property while I was in town getting groceries. Cigarette butts by my shed, a beer can on my porch steps. Through it all, I noticed that DOGMAN was staying closer to my cabin than ever before. I'd catch glimpses of him circling the perimeter of my property at dusk, always keeping the house between himself and the road. Sometimes I'd wake in the night to hear a low growling from the edge of the woods when vehicles were approaching. It seemed my forest guardian was equally concerned as me about these unwelcome visitors. February 17th was cold. I would say unusually cold for Tennessee. A thin layer of frost covered the ground, and my breath made little clouds in the air as I hurried inside from feeding the chickens at dusk. Something felt different that evening, a tension in the air, like the stillness before a storm. I made a simple dinner, soup and cornbread, although I barely touched it. My nerves were on edge. I'd seen tire tracks on the access road that morning, fresh ones, and I found my mailbox door hanging open, although nothing seemed to be missing. By 8 o'clock, the woods around my cabin had fallen into that special kind of country darkness, absolute and complete. I was washing my dinner dishes when I first saw the flash of headlights through the trees, and then I saw a second. and a third. Not passing by on the main road, but turning onto my long gravel driveway. My hands froze in the soapy water. 3 sets of headlights approached slowly, their beams sweeping across my front yard as they maneuvered into position. One truck directly facing my porch, the others angled to illuminate the sides of my cabin. The engines went quiet, but the lights stayed on, painting harsh shadows across my home. I dimmed my kitchen light and I moved to the window. Men emerged from the vehicles, 8 of them all together, their silhouettes backlit by the headlights. Even from a distance, I could see the now familiar tattoos marking their skin. Several carried long objects, baseball bats perhaps, or something worse. They spread out around my property with practiced efficiency. 2 headed toward my shed. Another pair circled toward the back door. The English speaker stood by the lead vehicle, directing the others with hand gestures. He called for me by my name, his voice carrying clearly through the night air. "We know you're home," he said. "We need to talk to you about your moving arrangements." I backed away from the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. The nearest neighbor was miles away. Cell service had always been spotty at best out here. I was entirely alone. And then I heard it. A deep, resonant growl from somewhere in the darkness beyond the vehicles. A sound that belonged to no dog or wolf I'd ever heard. The men heard it too. I saw them pause, heads turning toward the tree line. The English-speaking one barked something in Spanish, and 2 men broke off to investigate, flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. For a moment, there was nothing but silence, and the nervous shuffling of feet. Then, something massive exploded from the shadows. The dogman moved with impossible speed for something that large. One moment it was a shadow at the edge of the trees. The next, it was among the men, a hulking figure of fur and muscle, standing nearly 8 feet tall on its hind legs. In the harsh vehicle lights, I could see every detail of the creature I'd only glimpsed in the shadows before. The powerful chest and shoulders, covered in thick gray-brown fur. The massive hands with curved claws that caught the light like polished ebony. The wolf-like head, with ears laid flat against its skull, and teeth bared in a terrifying snarl. The men shouted in panic. One swung what looked like a pipe, but the dogman caught it mid-swing, wrenched it away, and bent it as easily as I might bend a coat hanger. Another man rushed forward with what I now realized was a machete. The dogman moved with grace, sidestepping the attack and seizing the man by his jacket. With one powerful motion, it lifted him completely off the ground and hurled him through the air. He crashed into one of the truck's windshields with enough force to crack the glass. The scene descended into chaos. 2 men tried to flank the creature, but it spun with shocking agility, sweeping one of them off his feet with a powerful arm. The other man backed away, fumbling at his waistband. The dogman leaped, a single bound covering at least 15 feet, and landed directly in front of him. The man fell backwards, scrambling away on all fours. The dogman stood protectively between my home and the intruders, its massive form silhouetted against the headlights. It rose to its full height, chest expanding, as it unleashed a howl that seemed to make the very air vibrate. The English speaker shouted commands from behind this truck in Spanish. 3 men regrouped and began to circle the dogman, which tracked them with fluid movements of its head, never turning its back fully to any one of them. One of the men threw something, maybe a knife, but the creature deflected it with a swift swipe of his arm. Another man had retreated to the lead truck, and he returned with what looked horribly like a weapon. The dogman seemed to sense the escalating danger. It dropped to all fours and charged directly at the armed man, moving with the speed of a racing greyhound, despite its enormous size. The man panicked, firing too quickly. The shot went wide. Before he could chamber another round, the dogman was upon him, knocking him flat and sending the weapon skittering across the frost-covered ground. The creature stood over him, jaws snapping inches from his face, driving him back toward the vehicles. For a moment, I thought these intruders would flee. Several were already retreating, limping or half carrying each other to the trucks. But then I saw 3 men converge from different angles. The English speaker had retrieved the fallen weapon. Another had produced what looked like a heavy chain. The dogman whirled to face them, backing up slightly, measuring the threat. It snarled, the sound so deep I could feel it in my chest even through the window glass. It feinted toward one man, causing him to stumble back, then pivoted to confront the leader with the gun. There was a sharp crack, and a flash from the weapon. The dogman jerked sideways but did not fall. Another crack, and this time I thought I saw the creature stagger. I couldn't watch any more. With tears streaming down my face, I fled to the back of the house, grabbing my emergency flashlight from the kitchen drawer. I fumbled with the basement door, finally getting it open and nearly falling down the stairs in my haste. The concrete floor was ice cold through my slippers as I ran to the small bathroom in the corner, the most secure room in the house, with no windows and one solid door. I locked myself in, my entire body trembling as I slid down against the door, pulling my knees to my chest. Outside I could still hear shouts and what might have been growls, but they were growing fainter and more distant. The brave creature that had inexplicably become my protector appeared to have fallen, and now nothing stood between me and the men who wanted my home. I spent that night huddled in my basement bathroom, listening to every creak and groan of my old house, certain each sound was the men coming to claim what they believed was now theirs. Dawn came with a silence so profound it eventually gave me courage. I emerged from my hiding place with stiff joints and eyes swollen from tears, creeping up the basement stairs like a mouse. The house was untouched. Nothing broken. Nothing disturbed at all. My cat Jasper greeted me with an impatient meow, hungry for his breakfast, as if it had just been an ordinary night like any other. With trembling hands, I parted the curtains. The yard was empty. No vehicles, no men, and no sign of the fierce battle that had unfolded hours before. The gravel where the trucks had parked was smooth, unmarked by tire tracks. The ground showed no evidence of the struggle that I had witnessed. I ventured outside onto the porch, scanning the tree line. The only movement I saw was a pair of cardinals flitting between branches. Perhaps it had been a dream, I thought. But the terror had been too real, the details too vivid. Later that day, I heard on the radio that ICE had been conducting raids across 3 counties, arresting dozens involved in a smuggling operation. Perhaps that explained the men's disappearance. Or perhaps something else had happened. Something the morning light had washed away. It's been months now since that night. The tattooed men have not returned. Sometimes I wonder if they were arrested, or if they simply found easier targets elsewhere. Or perhaps something else drove them away permanently. Something that prowls the Tennessee woods on 2 legs when needed. I still leave food at the edge of the clearing every evening. Better cuts than before. Choicer pieces of venison or ham. Sometimes in the morning the plate is empty. Sometimes it isn't. I haven't seen the dogman since that February night, but sometimes I wake to the sound of something moving around on my property. Something large and deliberate, patrolling the perimeter. I don't know if the dogman truly saved me, or if fate intervened in some other way, but I keep watching my tree line at dusk, hoping for a glimpse of my guardian, and I sleep a little bit more soundly than a woman my age, alone in these woods, has any right to do.
Team Dogman for men of the world, and it also looks cute on girls. The hat says Dogman, I'm happy to meet you, but there's no guarantee that Dogman won't eat you. Team Dogman hat, it's the prescription. The link to get your own is in the description.
Thanks, Biggie, and thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button. Or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.